So when you say you invest in projects, or you sort of give grants to projects, could you explain how this is different from investing in a startup? And what are the main differences in the structure between a project and a startup? We'll take that one at a time. Nancy, do you want to start us off?
Okay. From a grant funding perspective, just from an Innovate UK perspective, it's more about the legalities of it. From our perspective, how the best way to put it. So you can ring fence a specific project and the spend in that specific development project, which then opens up let's take an example, actually, it's probably easier that way. So you've had 100K invested in your business and you've match funded it. With a grant, you've managed to get a full grant for a specific project. So you've had 200K investment, but the 100K was from an angel investor who's invested in the business, but the grant is for the specific project. Your project only costs you 150,000. So you then can ring fence legally that spend, and then the 50,000 beyond that, you could then look to do things such as claim that as part of your R&D tax credit. So you could then get a percentage of that back off your corporation tax. So it's partly about being clever about it from our perspective as a consultancy. That's what we would advise. It's about using your money in the smartest way possible. But from a kind of more general point of view, it's the way Innovate UK work. It's looking at the technology is the main focus. And then the business model around that is, yes, it's really important as well, but it feeds into a wider business. So they're just legally defined as separate things.
Mm. So from an Innovate UK perspective, let's see if I've got this right. You would have the company, but then you apply for a grant for a specific project within that company. So it's not, you're not saying that it's either a project or a company. A company already exists, but you're applying for a grant for a project that you want to run.
Exactly, a specific funded project which falls in line with the scope of the specific grant that you were applying for.
Okay, thank you. And so Darren, I wonder, you probably have a slightly different view on what projects and startups mean in terms of how the university sees projects and startups, but also how some of the other funding and grant bodies see the difference between projects and startups. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Ooh, it's a bit of a tough one, because in my current role in the University of Sheffield, we have to fund businesses that are either just about to register or are registered. So that's how funding sits within the Evolve Fund in the entrepreneurship team. But I do know universities do have, some universities have money to support projects that may then become businesses. So these sometimes sit within volunteering departments. They emerge out of things like RBS. I'm not sure if it exists anymore, but the RBS ESSA awards for societies that were showcasing enterprising capabilities. There was funding attached to that, and projects that were existent in societies that would then become businesses. Again, Unlimited used to support a lot of projects that could then become businesses, but they would define that completely on having a legal structure and being registered and clear on Companies House, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so from your perspective and from some other people's perspective, in terms of those very sort of small grant pots, particularly within universities that are linked to sort of enterprise units, they wouldn't necessarily fund what they deem as projects or something that doesn't have the potential to become sustainable, right? Or isn't ever intended to be a business, like running a festival and charging for tickets as a one-off is a project.
Exactly.
But setting up a company that does that all the time is a company.
Yeah, exactly. And we're seeing more and more that funding within universities needs to be more carefully managed. So, terms might be that funding is available for business that are going to create some kind of economic impact through employment. So they will create jobs, or the work that they're planning is based on scale rather than some other nice output. So yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. Do you want to weigh in on this? Have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd just agree with the fact that project can be something that sits within an organisation as well as is actually a discrete activity that isn't in an incorporated organisation. To me, it really depends on who it is that's seeking the money. Are they corporate? Are they unincorporated? How then might you relate to them as a grant maker or an investor? Any investment, whether it's a grant or a loan, is made for a purpose. So it's about understanding whether that's a finite purpose, like a one-off event festival, as you suggested, Sam, or whether it's about the development of an idea that may well become something else. I mean, if it's the former, then it's a very discrete, finite piece of investment that's usually formed around cost centres and set within a time frame. If it's the latter, then I think grant works almost like equity in social enterprise, in that it can provide risk capital to test an idea, to burn a bit of money in order to properly frame something that then might go into a trading environment. Lending only works if you're generating income. If you're not, it's no good to you. You can't use it. From a key fund perspective, we see a grant as a way of securing social value. And an example of that is we work with an organisation called Barnsley Community Build. And as the name suggests, they're a construction company. They train young people to develop skills in construction, but for 6 months of the year, for the first year of operation, a trainee will be economically unproductive. You're simply not quick enough or good enough to make money for the company. So there needs to be a subsidy that both supports that training role, but also covers the cost of the organisation taking on that money. So we might grant to support a trainee developing those skills to then become economically